And welcome to Number One Comic Books. My name is Tom, and in this video, I am going to review Hunt for the Skinwalker, number 1. As always, we're going to break it down into 6 criteria, and at the end of the video, I'll let you know, was Hunt for the Skinwalker, number 1, compelling enough for me to buy issue number 2? Let's find out. And be sure to stick around to the end, because I have a piece of trivia that I think you'll find interesting. All right, well, let's jump into it. And as always, we start with the cover of the book. We've got it right here. I'm trying to make some adjustments with the lighting. So we're not going with the ring light today, just going with the lighting in the room and the computer, the monitors, I should say. And the cover was, I can see what they were doing with the cover. It's kind of eerie and mysterious, blurry, cloudy, that alien type feel to it. But again, it was kind of blurry and cloudy and not really easy to see what's going on. So no real focal point that were to draw your eye. I picked this up in my local comic book store after asking the clerk if there was any good recent horror books that he would recommend. So I had already scoured the store and went right past this, and I only picked this up because he said it was good. So with that being said, looking for a cover that's going to draw my attention, that I see it in the store and I have to go pick it up because it's just so alluring, Hunt for the Skinwalker is going to get 4 out of 10. All right, next up we judge the characters in the book. A little bit different here because it isn't superhero based. Actually, this is, I think, the first review I've done that was just, well, I don't want to say that. We just did a haunted girl before this episode, and that also was kind of supernatural based like this book. So with that being said, the characters, I did enjoy the family. So that's what it's primarily focused on, is a family on this ranch that is dealing with the Skinwalker. You have a mom, a dad, a son, and a daughter. The book does a good job of letting you feel the emotions of the characters, and you can kind of put yourself in their shoes if something like this was really going on. I'd be freaking out as well, just as they are. So nothing overly special with the characters, but we're kind of just telling a story here, almost like a real life type story, if that makes sense. So you can't integrate Spider-Man into this story. So for what it is, and these characters in the book, and including the Skinwalker, I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10. All right, guys, next up is artwork, and I found this one fairly interesting. As I've mentioned before, and I'll just mention here again, I am a fan of the Golden Age comics, the Silver Age. I like the older artwork. The stuff today, I say to me, looks a little cartoony at times, and that really isn't the right way to put it. Really, a lot of the artwork today it's just more polished. As I've also mentioned before, what I think of as comic book art is back from that era, is from the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, even the 80s. And so the new stuff today, it's just, I don't enjoy, it's not as enjoyable to me. However, the Skinwalker, or the Hunt for the Skinwalker, it bridged the gap a little bit. It wasn't quite as polished as some of these new books that I've read, and I liked it. It felt more of a comic book to me. With that being said, I'm going to give artwork an 8 out of 10. Well, as always, the next category is readability. This one was different than any other ones I've read in this series. It wasn't hard to read, so the readability was fine. There was a nice flow. You didn't have a lot of overlapping conversation or anything that, might throw you off. No big words were being used, so it was pretty easy to follow. The one nitpick, and I'll show this on the screen, that I really didn't care for, and this is silly, but the font that they used when you were getting commentary from the narrator of the story. It was just kind of a basic new age font, and I didn't like the way it fit with the book. I would have liked more of a comic book feel font. So with that little nitpick, if it wasn't for that, I would have given this a much higher score, but I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10. All right, so we're going to do something a little different here with the story. Instead of going to ChatGPT and getting a breakdown, I'm going to go directly to the source. So we are on boomstudios.com. and I'm going to read what they have to say about the first issue of Hunt for the Skinwalker. Hunt for the Skinwalker #1, the first issue in the brand new single-issue series inspired by one family's confrontation with the unexplainable and terrifying, and what happened when they invited the largest scientific investigation of the paranormal to their ranch, working hand-in-hand with Dr. Colm Kelleher and George Knapp, and incorporating never-before-seen revelations. Writer Zach Thompson and artist Valerie Berzo adapts the category-defying godfather of modern-day paranormal research nonfiction book, Hunt for the Skinwalker. That was a mouthful. I did a couple takes there. That was not easy for me to get out. And this is claimed to be based on the unexplainable, unbelievably true paranormal story. So, my thoughts on the story overall. My little synopsis is, you have a family that is recently moved to this ranch. Basically, they start being terrorized by the Skinwalker. And when I try to give my synopsis, I try not to give you too much detail in case you haven't read the book. But anyway, so they are, and there's a lot of backstory in the book of like the history of the ranch, the history of that area, and the family is just kind of driven crazy. They're scared out of their minds. They don't know what to do. On the side, they're also dealing with financial troubles. So it's like this mounting of just mental stress and pressure, and story kind of progresses as they become more and more terrorized, if you will. So without giving you every detail in the book, I'm going to leave it right there, and I'm going to give you my score for the story, which, again, I liked it. I know about it. I mean, I've watched a lot of documentaries and things. I enjoy this type of stuff. So maybe because of my history and because I know so much about this, the Hunt for the Skinwalker Ranch, all things related, that I was maybe looking for a little bit more. I mean, it just was kind of a basic explanation of the story, which is great. It's not a bad thing, but for me, it just didn't provide quite enough punch. So I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10. And the hook, as I've mentioned, I need something on that last page, that last panel that's going to just draw me to, I have to get #2. That's the feeling that I want. And I need it right now. This hook is so good. Excuse my language. What the hell is going to happen next? I got to know right now. So, did this story have it? The hook wasn't bad. I mean, it ended with pretty much the father out on the ranch. There's been this mysterious looking box floating around in the air, for lack of a better way of putting it, an unidentified flying object. And they've been able to see this large being kind of peering through a window at them. There was some footprints found that were 18 inches in size. So, some large, tall being. So at the very end, you have the dad out on the ranch looking up in the sky, and it appears that an actual UFO, kind of a traditional looking UFO, or at least that's what you get from the lighting, is coming down to do whatever, maybe take him, attack, or something like that. So what's going to happen next? I mean, if the dad was being taken up on a beam of light or something, it probably would have had a little bit more kick to it for me, but it still was pretty good. I am very interested, and I do have copy #2 or issue #2, so I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. So for the hook, I'm going to give a 7 out of 10. All right, with our individual scores all in the books, let's go ahead and give a brief rundown here. Hunt for the Skinwalker, #1 by Boom Studios. We gave the cover a 4. Characters got a 7. Artwork got an 8. Readability a 6. Story got a 6. And hook got a 7. We don't do a straight weighting. I have some of these categories weighted a little bit higher than others because I think they, at least in my opinion, are more important to whether or not a book is good or not. But I'm not going to share those. We keep that in-house. However, our weighted score for Hunt for the Skinwalker #1 is 5.99 out of 10. Not a great score. Unfortunately, the lowest scoring book I have reviewed to this point, which is funny because all in all, I don't think it is a bad book, and I am glad that I have issue #2. So spoiler alert, with that being said, the final question of each video is, did I think enough of this book to want to go out and purchase #2? And this was borderline here. I mentioned in the previous video a haunted girl was borderline. This was even more borderline. This was so narrow that I almost said no. Maybe because I have the book, I might as well just say yes, but #2 better do something for me or I'm going to be stopping right there. So by a very, very slim margin, I will say yes, I am looking forward to #2. I mentioned in the beginning sticking around to the end of the video because I had a very interesting piece of trivia, or at least I find it very interesting, and I wanted to share with you. Okay, and thank you so much for sticking around to this point in the video, right before I get into the fun fact, as I call it, that I want to share with you. If you're not subscribed to the channel, I would really appreciate it if you would consider it, and if not, just simply giving me a thumbs up on the video would be greatly appreciated. is I need all the help I can get. So I don't know if I should call this a fun fact, but we're going to call it a fun fact. Did you know that there have been 300 years of UFO sightings on Skinwalker Ranch? These sightings date back all the way to the 1700s, where early Spanish explorers told strange stories of crafts flying above their campfires at night. So there you have it, guys, my full review and score of Hunt for the Skinwalker #1. Let me know in the comments, have you read the book? Are you thinking of getting the book if you hadn't read it? Or has my review dissuaded you, which I hope not, because we all look at these books differently. We all have different likes and dislikes. So thank you so much for tuning in to #1 Comic Books, and I hope to see you next time.